Today we're going to talk about thriving on the road, managing stress and fatigue. Today I definitely want to leave you with some practical strategies on really how to manage behavior health issues and mental health issues, both on the road and in an office environment. So this content will definitely be geared towards transportation professionals and to a driver group as well. A little bit about me. I've always been fascinated with human behavior. After completing my bachelor's in psychology from Prairie A&M University, landed my first job at Compact Computers, which is now HP. But it was then when I realized that leadership is a vital part of any organization. It's not the what, it's the how. Um, and in no particular order, I'm a family man. I enjoy spending time with my wife and kids and taking long walks with my black lab, Caleb. I do self-identify as a runner because running helped me survive the stress of working in the logistics and transportation industry. So we'll talk more about that. I am a late bloomer on coffee. I don't know how many coffee experts we have out there, but I love a good coffee. I love the mom and pop shops, especially when I have good access to Wi-Fi. And then most of all, one thing I'm passionate about, I believe that we should all find a tribe in life, people who accept us and feel the passion inside of us. And I think part of, especially if you work with the driver group, that's what they once they find their tribe and they find what they love to do, they really excel at that point as well. And so to back up, I'll be looking, checking the chat in throughout the seminar as well. Yes, I got some coffee people in here as well. So yeah, I appreciate that. So I always like, whenever we talk about content, I like to make sure we set the course on what we're going to be talking about. So today I want to leave you to a better understanding of the early signs of stress and fatigue. And then I'll give you some stress management techniques. Then I'll show you how to create a healthy work environment, give you some key attributes around that. For starters, in the chat, tell me if you have felt stress over the past 3 to 6 months. Give me a Y or an N. Anyone felt stress? Okay. Yeah, stressful year. Yeah. Yeah, stress is every day. I love that. Everyday stress. Yeah, stress is one of those intangibles. You can't see it, but you can definitely feel it. Yes. Give me this. The next one in chat, type in the chat if you or someone you know is facing mental health challenges this year. Anyone face mental health challenges? When I say that, like seek counseling services, or probably had a mental breakdown that you're aware of. I got several and say yes. Okay, yes. Yeah, and so part of what happens is that a lot of times in my field, in my background, we realize that I call it psychoeducation. And as Mark said earlier, it's the stigma associated with mental health. It's a taboo subject. It's viewed as weakness. And often when we talk about participating in mental health services, mostly the female population participate in services. And ironically, when we look at the driver population, it's mostly male dominant. And so that's who probably need the services the most. So um, without belaboring that point, before we get into the takeaways, I want to talk about the importance of mental health and physical health. First, I would just say, Mark, you know this well, the challenges in the transportation industry from a professional perspective and for drivers. First of all, you work long hours, irregular work hours. Of course, that can lead to chronic stress and fatigue, high stress environment, tight deadlines, heavy traffic, um, based on your pay structure, depending if you get paid by load, you get paid by your time. There's a lot of demands around that. And I think most of all that leads us here is that Limited access to food. I would say good food and access location and areas when you're driving. And so that's a perfect recipe for me for someone over a period of time to have incremental weight gain consistently over, say, over 5 to 10 years. And then while the stress of being isolated can take its toll. And so part of what we look at is some of those challenges, how do you combat those challenges? And, we've been dealing with this, Mark, you can weigh in, but we've been looking at these challenges for years. And I know parking, we've gotten better at parking. There's been some technology integrated in these parking locations that make it easier for drivers and take the stress out of parking. But when you talk about access to food and you talk about exercising, it's only so much you can do in a transportation environment.
Yeah, and there's also those uncontrollables like weather, and of course compliance with our. And the other thing I hear very common these days, Horatio, is construction zones. All the delays and unscheduled delays and uncontrollable delays, and that clearly has an impact on anxiety.
Yeah, big time, big time. And I'll talk about the metroplexes because it's compounded depending on where you're located. When we look at the impact on physical health, is well documented. In the 2021 CDC report, they indicated that truck drivers are at a high increased risk of anxiety and depression and burnout. So we know that mentally that they're predisposed just naturally by being in the industry. When we talk about driver fatigue, when drivers are out there on the road and they're fatigued, it can lead to decreased alertness, slower reaction times, higher risk of getting into accidents. Um, and so often, I think part of what we've done now, we've gone to the point where we're using our telematics to be engaged with the process. But I think while road drivers are more susceptible to mental and physical issues, physical health issues, I think just the natural demand to execute deliveries can take its toll. So, Mark, you talked about construction. I think that's compounded when you just look at Texas, when you're traveling through Dallas Fort Worth area, when you're coming through Austin, or when you talk about San Antonio and Houston. There's just a lot of different challenges out there, uncontrollables for drivers. So let's look at the early signs of stress and fatigue. When we talk about the indicators and we look at indicators around stress, I'll break that out of two areas, looking at emotional signs and the cognitive signs. On the emotional signs around stress, we're looking at irritability, we're looking at mood swings, sensitive, frustrated about small things. What that looks like is a driver that's normally cool and laid back comes in the dispatch, and it could be something small, but they just completely just lose it completely. They just go off when they're just really a happy-go-lucky, laid-back person. Of course, we talk about anxiety and restlessness. We look at depression. Typically, what I look for, especially when I had my dispatch team, was um, drivers who are typically upbeat, but they come in and they're not interested. They just want to get their load and leave. There's not a lot of dialogue. You can tell something is going on. They typically will stop in the office and just sit there, get a cup of coffee and hang out, but now they're in and out. So you know that something is happening with that driver. Um, and sometimes they're feeling overwhelmed, just a sense of losing control or just being able to cope with what they're dealing with. When we look at the cognitive signs, we're looking at different difficulty concentrating, focusing on tasks. Could be some memory loss, some memory problems, forgetting things, um, negative thinking. I always some drivers by default, and I love this, and Mark, you can speak to this as well. They're just pessimistic. They're just, the cynicism, they just come in, they come across as negative, but that's just how they show their love, right? But if you have that driver now, he's no more jokes, they're not being themselves, you figure out something's not quite there. There's some stress that's getting to them. And some of that stress could be not only at work, it could be dealing with something at home. I got something in the chat. Yeah, remembering drivers are human and not numbers or machines. Yeah. And so typically that's the stress or the intangible that I've seen with drivers because they feel like, hey, I'm just a piece of paper. If I don't get this load move, um, I'm not worthy. We had this expression, I'm only as good as my last load, right? So all it takes is one bad load, and now, you're the worst driver. You went from the top 10 to at the bottom of the toll because you had one incident.
Yeah, the other thing I've observed over the years, you don't know what's going on with the home life either. There can clearly be some challenges there that uh, compound the problem.
Yeah, especially, we're in this season. I'm very aware of once you get into May, June, graduation season, right? So a driver coming in that wants to request to go to a graduation, hey, let's make that accommodation. Now, we want him to plan, him or her to plan their schedule, but why would someone in dispatch deny someone from attending a graduation? And let me back up, the first grade graduation, graduation from middle school, from elementary to middle school, from middle school to high school. Seems like these days they have a graduation all over the place, right? But I think at the end of the day, in our society, we're always creating these outlets for parents and adults to engage with kids. But one of the challenges in the transportation industry is that we're not as forgiving because at the end of the day, we have some drivers, they have a 60-hour work week, 60, they're pushing it. And so it's just a different animal. But when we talk about fatigue, we're looking at physical signs. We're looking at just persistent, just being tired, exhausted, may have, you're not feeling it strong, you're feeling weak. Some people get lightheaded. I've had incidents where drivers come into dispatch and they've had a fainting spell, uh, couldn't find their balance. So you see a lot of different things physically on that side. On the behavior side, you see increase in errors. They may miss something or may miss turning in paperwork. You may see reduced productivity. They normally give you 5 to 7 loads a week. They may pull back and may give you 3 and try to just take the longest run where they can just stay out all day. So I think most of all, what I've seen is when people start to socially withdraw, they just no longer engage. Let me get my load and leave. I got some feedback in the chat. Uh, yeah, a lot of drivers in self-induced stress, listening to talk radio. Yes. I have a driver that I work with, I still talk to now, and I coach him sometimes. He loves the political scene. And often I try to redirect because he's a Cowboy fan and I'm a 49er. And say, let's talk about the Cowboys and the 49ers. Let's talk about sports, right? But drivers definitely get into that mode to where they're listening to talk radio. And so they come in with this narrative based on what they've heard. And so that controls how they feel and the level of stress that they're engaging in as well. It's good feedback. So when we look at recognizing the early signs, there's 2 things. I think as transportation logistics professionals, we have to do a self-assessment. We have to look at asking ourselves, do I feel overwhelmed? Am I experiencing persistent being tired all the time? Do I have a rest and reset routine? Often I admire people, and you've probably seen this. I think in the fall, deer season, it's time to go hunt. I had drivers that have boats, colleagues that have boats. And we're going out to the lake this weekend. Uh, and so we're going to go fishing, or some people love to go on vacation. So finding that balance, and what I find often, especially in an office environment administratively, that we work just as hard as drivers. Sometimes we'll put in those 60, 65 hours a week comparable to drivers because you want to show them that you're there for them. But we have to find that balance. We have to seek that balance, and we have to encourage our driver group to seek that balance. The observation, either in the driver group or someone on your dispatch team, is looking for them being irritable, them making mistakes, especially in dispatch, not closing out loads normally the way that you would in the past. If it's someone on the safety team, not going through and doing their regular routine, checking logs and things of that nature. It could be some erratic driving behavior. I think part of what I love about how the industry has grown is using telematics. You can actually look at a driver pattern based on the telematics and see if they're erratic driving around speeding or, harsh braking, acceleration that's different from typically how they normally move the truck. And the telematics tells you a lot about driver behavior. So utilizing those resources so you can be engaged in some early warning signs. And I think that's definitely where the technology has put us, where we can leverage that to really be observant of driver behavior, especially when you talk about them behind the truck. Um, I love this. Positive reinforcement works well. Yes. Whenever we could utilize those telematics for positive reinforcement as far as identifying people that are, no heartbreaks for a period of time or no rapid accelerations. You can have fun with it to recognize. Always looking for different ways to recognize drivers, even your dispatch team as well. So let's talk about, and this is where we get into, Mark said taboo, but I always think about it's kind of like the pie in the sky. And because over a period of time, I'll look at the hippie generation of, everyone is kind of looking at um, everything is groovy, everything is laid back, no stress. And Mark, I'm dating myself, but I'm not in that area. But can you always look at being a teenager at 1968 compared to, I don't know, 2018, right? you know, all the stress that was there. So you saw this outlet and this big movement around being mindful, relaxing, not being engaged in some of the social things that are taking place. But I think overall, mindfulness is really taken off. So when we look at effective stress management techniques, those mindfulness practices really they pay off. They may not seem on the surface like it's kind of like, oh, why do I want to do this? But once you get engaged with it, it really makes a difference. I think one of the benefits, there's a lot of science behind it. I'll talk about the science later on, but being able to shut the mind down and relax and then move away from your stress makes a difference. Um, I'm in the chat, but I never see support. Yeah, we'll talk about driver support as well when we get into environment. So what does mindfulness look like? That's paying attention, full attention to the present moment. You can have a mindfulness walk. There's no music, you just walking. I love this. I saw recently you can have a mindfulness meal where you just take in the meal and take in every flavor and be engaged. You can allow yourself to disappear in whatever you're dealing with and be in the moment. Of course, the benefits is really reduce stress, improve focus, and I think most of all, enhance emotional regulation. Because typically, and we've seen this, especially my transportation professionals who have run dispatch, you've seen drivers come in and they lose it and the inability to come down, the inability to pull it down to where you can talk to the data and you can get to the what. That's why I always talk about from a leadership perspective, not looking at the what, but how you approach it. But so you got to get that how down pack so you can talk about the what. When we look at the relaxation exercises. I do want to do a quick exercise, and I got a visual, Mark and Steve here. I want you guys to relax, put your hands on your thigh in your office. And if you're on the phone, if you're in this session and you're at the office, I want you to put your hands on your thigh. I want you to get your shoulders squared up, relax. And I want you to take 5 deep breaths. Breathe in, breathe out. Let's do it again. Deep breath. Breathe down. Breathe out. So 1 minute. Breathe in. Breathe in. Again. Breathe in. This time I'm going to hold it. Right. So slowing down the heartbeat, creating this exercise with your breath to where you can enjoy the moment and take your mind somewhere else. It makes a difference. Um, I did have training, trying to train drivers with this, and it's some gravitate to it, some not, but it makes a difference. Being able to control your breath, of course, as a runner and when you're walking, especially when your heartbeat gets up to like 160, 170, you have to control your breathing rhythm, right? In order to continue to stay on your feet and run for 2 hours consistently. You have to be engaged in your breath. So that's one good relaxation exercise. And then when we talk about time management tips, um, I did with my team in the chat. Give me anyone 7 habits highly effective people in the chat. Anyone familiar with 7 habits? Yes, I love it. Nice. So what I did, as you can see in my office, I have the habits all around my office just to remind me, right? Be proactive, put first things first. Um, and so first things first is really what I call every day you should have a P1, P2, P3, which is priority one, which is something that has to get done today. I always use the expression before the sunset. This needs to get taken care of. P2 is I need to. It's a priority too. I need to get it done, but it'll be okay if I get it done tomorrow. P3 is something that's on my wish list that I need to take care of. So being able to put first things first, you definitely want to have a rhythm and a process for doing that. And then when you talk about making tasks manageable, I always say, how do you eat an elephant? You eat an elephant one bite at a time. So breaking things up, planning it out to where today I'm going to do a little bit here. Tomorrow I'm going to take care of this. And then by Friday, I have it all completed. So you want to do things in chunks. That way you can take the stress out of them because often we feel like we got to do it all at one time. I remember driver training and especially long hauls, like from here to El Paso, looking at those routes and looking at where I can fuel that, looking at where I can get lodging for the night. Having that trip planned out reduces the stress. Mark mentioned the traffic. Having some insight using the technology to where you can already look at red spots coming down 35 or red spots off I-10 that's going to take you to El Paso, right? So doing some good planning can help you reduce your stress as well. And I think we owe it to our drivers to help educate and move them through that training process as well.
Yeah, I was just going to make a comment. Mindful practice, relaxation, these are all soft skills that can be developed. These aren't things you just wake up in the morning and know. And I know there's a lot of research and data on crashes that are related to impairment or speeding or lane changes. I just wonder how many crashes are due to anxiety and the distraction of not being able to relax or being mindful or being overwhelmed with time management issues.
Yeah, and so that's where we go back to using the telematics people on your phones. How many years has it been now, Mark, that they've added to where it's a CDL series if you get caught with a handheld device? Because a lot of times that social media app is there helps them control their stress, right? They're like, if I can't get this update, if I can't be engaged, being able to move away from the telephone to where you're focusing on driving. So
Right.
distracted driving definitely is out there. So that how you manage your anxiety and your stress when you're in the cab, it definitely makes a difference.
Of course, being a safety director, safety manager is not stress free at all, but these are things that you can clearly share with your professional commercial driving staff that I would clearly think would have an impact on truck crashes as well as retention.
And so, funny that you mentioned it. So, part of what we do is with our employee assistance program, we have the wellness portion where we actually have a session where we come in and teach some of the breathing techniques, where drivers and the management team can come in and just shut down and anticipate that they're just going to be able to shut down for at least 30 minutes and breathe and relax and get into Zen mode and find that Zen space. Um, I think often the late Bill Walton, I don't know if he in the sports, he just passed, but he was into the Zen. He was into that area of relaxing, and he utilized that a lot in his NBA career and in post as well. But from a transportation perspective, I think companies, I wouldn't say necessarily owe it to their drivers, but creating that educational environment to where you try something different. Because if you keep trying what you're doing now is not working, of course, that's the definition of insanity. But overall, when you look at these soft skills, it's definitely something that can be developed and reinforced the right resources. So when we look at implementing stress management techniques, I mean, part of it is really coming up with a daily routine. And when I say a daily routine, I think everything starts in the morning, not unless you have a group that's, I went on the graveyard shift, right? Because that's a different beast. When people start their day at 10, 11 o'clock at night, you'd be surprised from the driver perspective. They love it because there's not a lot of traffic. They don't have to deal with it. I'd rather start my shift at 8 p.m. and finish that by 5 in the morning because I don't have to deal with the traffic. I can make my deliveries. I can confirm if they take deliveries overnight and I'm good to go. But typically, you want to have that morning routine. So when you start your day with a few minutes of mindfulness and deep breathing, it sets the tone for what you're going to do today, gets you engaged in life, engaged in the moment. Um, and I always encourage to journal to start your day because once you can journal to look at, hey, what's my P1 today? What's my P2? What's my P3? Now I can begin to orchestrate my day to where I can be productive and I can give more to others. So part of that prioritizing, it could be related to work. It can be related to personal life. You can already look at, I got a parent teacher conference. Oh, I have a play tonight I need to attend, or that's coming up Wednesday. So you're already planning your day, you're planning your week, so you can participate in things that matter to you, that matter at work, and from a personal perspective. We talk about taking breaks. I think over a period of time, that's really taken off. I know naturally from the DOT perspective, drivers are mandated to take breaks. Always been looking at implementing water breaks. And believe it or not, Mark, I am a big fan of social media breaks when it's healthy. Uh, when it's something, maybe you're following a podcast. And so you want to take a break and listen to your favorite podcast so you can be engaged. So you have to look at how do you break away from something that's really intense, that's stressing you out, to where you can get in an environment where you can just relax and not be overwhelmed, stressed out. And then, of course, we've developed some tools over a period of time. We talk about technology. There's different apps you can use, whether it be on the Calm, Headspace. There's a variety of different types of technology that you can leverage. Even now, I would tell you when I sleep with ocean waves because I can get into REM sleep. I can get into a deeper level of sleep, not being distracted by the AC kicking on or the fan or something happening. And part of the other thing is I would teach drivers, we would have a session on how do you sleep on the road? Because everyone sleeps differently. Everyone, and we know to be true. And of course, when you talk about crash and fatigue, a lot of that driver fatigue comes from lack of sleep. So you have to create this environment. We'll talk more about that, but leveraging technology so you can get adequate sleep and you can step away and engage in life as well. So the science, when we talk about mindfulness, we talk about any physical activity with our body, when we talk about feeling and things that we do, there's always some chemicals at work in our body. And I just took these four neurotransmitters that our body naturally creates. Dopamine. Um, that's the reward chemical. So that's going through your task, going through your P1, P2, getting everything checked off. Um, Eating good food, celebrating wins. We talked about recognizing drivers, recognizing dispatch team. I would look at serotonin, the mood stabilizer. So that's meditating, that's running, that's getting out in the sun, that's taking a nice walk. That could be swimming, it could be cycling, any type of physical activity. Uh, the endorphins, that's the painkiller. That's where you get into laughter. Uh, I have to know if give me your top comedians out there. I love a good laugh. Any Richard Pryor fans out there? Any George Garland? Give me top comedians. Anyone out there that loves a good laugh? In chat, if you can give me feedback in chat, give me something out there that makes you laugh. Tim Robbins, okay, all right. Brian Regan, all right. I came up in the Eddie Murphy generation. That was nice. Give me some other laugh. Oh, Dave Chappelle. Oh, that's yeah. Tim Hawkins. All right. Yeah, you can't go wrong with Eddie. I think at the end of the day, what we realize that distraction does so. Bernie Mac, my grandkids, I love it. Yeah, looking at, I call it young humans, right? Because they're so predictable. They bring joy and laughter to Kevin Hart. So laughter kind of gives you that, releases those endorphins. Dark chocolate. A lot of people talk about chocolate, exercising, all it. Oxytocin. When we look at the love hormone, that could be playing with your animal, with your dog, with your cat, finding, handling, dealing with your infants and your babies, holding hands. We have our huggers out there that every time you see them, they just give you a big hug, recognizing people, giving compliments. So these are natural neurotransmitters that are in play in our body. It's just a matter of us releasing them and doing things to make them generate those hormones in our body. And that's a lot of the science behind what we do, especially when we talk about mental health and wellness as well. So let's look at creating a healthy work environment. I am big on sleep. I use an app with my Garmin that tracks my sleep. This morning I was tracking, last night I tracked 6 hours of sleep. I got 2 hours of REM sleep, right? So my goal is to deepen that REM sleep because regular sleep is surface, which means that your light sleepers, they wake up, either you're going to the restroom or you hear something and it throws you off at 2 a.m. and it takes you about 2:30 to go back. You have to figure out how do you develop a good sleep schedule and a sleep routine. And even for the driver population, even more important, Mark, from a safety perspective, when you talk about driver fatigue, first thing I look at is, hey, how much sleep have you been getting? Do you track your sleep? From a company perspective, do you encourage drivers to monitor and track their sleep so they can be the best person that they can be behind the wheel? And that's more kind of talking about it, creating that environment where it's okay to really talk about being fatigued because you didn't get enough sleep, because this hotel that you normally stay at, they normally is very disruptive. So you might want to take that off the corporate lodging um, list for drivers to stay at because you're not getting good sleep. Is your cab created to where you can sleep, get optimal sleep when you're on the road? Sleep is definitely one of those things that I think that can be very disruptive. Um, yeah, going to bed and getting up at the same time, even on non-work days. Yes, on weekends, I try to beat the sunrise. So every night I look at what time the sun is going to come up in the morning, so I can realize how I want to schedule that morning run and get out for the day. Of course, in Texas, I always feel like a vampire. Once the sun comes up, it, it's natural sweat, right? So you have to be aware of that. I think one of the key things is creating this environment where you have good nutrition and physical activity. So what you see for a lot of areas in the chat, give me feedback if you have a weight room or exercise room at your facility. Give me a yes or no in chat if you have a weight room or exercise facility. No, 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 no one. Okay. Yeah. I think, and Mark, I don't know have you been to facilities where they have this elaborate exercise room where they have weight equipment, bikes, everything so drivers can come in on their time off. Um, and you're right, some terminals, the main terminal may have it, but your satellite terminal may not be equipped with that. But you definitely want to create an environment where you give drivers opportunities. Part of what I did for about 3 months, and I want to see who utilize it, gave drivers access to Goals memberships and 24-hour fitness, just so they would have access on their off days when they can go in and be physical. When we talk about nutrition, I think we moving to not having the regular potato chips in the break area, right? Having good nutritional food available when you go into the break area, not having a lot of sodas, but good water, good drinks that are not have high in sugar, but can keep them hydrated as well. So you want to create this environment where you have good nutritional items for your driver group and your dispatch team to engage in as well. When we talk about a supportive environment, that's more about really communicating and getting in front of, stress and fatigue, having workshops, having pop-ups around how to manage your stress, around what driver fatigue looks like, encouraging them, coming up with a support system as well. And part of that's tied to our EAP, Employee Assistance Program. Part of what we do, we come in and provide a wellness program to where initially it's offering free counseling sessions, free coaching sessions, free stress management sessions, and to where people feel like they can engage and they have an outlet so they can learn more and they can deal with what they're working with. So you want to provide that support for drivers and for your work group. We often mention that your physical health and your mental health on the same spectrum. On the physical side, a lot of companies from medical, you get free as long as you get your annual checkup is free, no cost, right? So for us, we do an annual. That's your couch time check-in, no cost. You're not exhibiting any signs. For my birthday every year, I just go and get my blood drawn. I'm not exhibiting any physical signs, but I just get an annual checkup so I can make sure everything's working. So do the same thing with your mental health. Once a year, schedule a visit with a certified or licensed professional counselor, and just have a visit. And if nothing's wrong and within an hour, you're good. If you feel like out of that 1 hour, you want to have some follow up, hey, you have access, especially if your company has an EAP program. I think overall, you just want to create a healthy work environment to where everyone can engage and feel comfortable. And then implementing the changes. That's I would say hands down, because often you get from drivers, we start this, we never finish it. We started it, we never finished it, right? So implementing these changes to where they can stick. So that means that you have to measure and monitor what you're doing as well. So those daily routines that you're doing, maybe you get an app to where it tracks how many times you walk. It tracks your walking duration, your running, your workout, because that which is measured is accomplished. So you want to create this environment where when you implement something, you can track and monitor it. When you look at workplace policies, flexible scheduling, and access to mental health resources, making sure that drivers and your dispatch team know that they have access to different resources related to their mental health. Um, I'm a big Star Wars fan. I love the Yoda. He always says, "No, try not, do, but do not." There's no try. And so often we get into, well, I'm gonna try this. We want to try this out. No, do it, and then create a habit so you can be consistent with how you go about doing it as well. In closing, I always couple things. I want you to be able to recognize stress and fatigue. I want you to create a plan and to understand it. And I think most of all, implementation, actually doing the work. And in closing, from my perspective, I have my mantra that says, we give you hope, inspiration, and freedom. Hope for a better day, inspired to move forward, and freedom to live your best life. That's about it. You can stay connected with me via email. Also, you can connect to our website. I can put that in the chat. And we have a Twitter access as well as on LinkedIn under Neely Behavior Health. All right.
Horatio, this
Hey,
is
we've got Steve
Steve.
back.
Hey, yeah. Boy, was this a timely program for me today. I have a lot of anxiety before this program started. Some of you may know I joined a little bit late thanks to having to reboot my computer. And so thanks, Mark, for kind of stepping in for me there. Couple of things. And by the way, Horatio, this was really good information for me today, but I think it's a topic that needs a lot more attention. Stress and anxiety creates a lot of problems for a lot of people. I did want to mention Horatio has helped us develop some content that is available in our system, in our catalog. It's called Driving Well Driver Course. So if you want to search that in the catalog, you can find that. There are 7 videos, starts off with an introduction and then talks about anxiety and relationships and depression and physical activity and stress management, personal development. That's all in our system already. So if there are current customers here that are listening, you might want to log into that. And I would highly encourage you to assign that out to your drivers. sometimes this is a topic that people aren't willing to just bring up and talk about. So maybe being forthright and providing some information might help people feel comfortable about doing some things that they probably need to do. Also, for those of you out there that aren't customers, if you want to respond to my little poll here, we could help you get access to this content and also tell you a little bit about our system and all the other quality content that we've got going on out there. So, having said that, Horatio, I certainly appreciate your comments today, and I think the audience.
Yeah, one more plug. One more plug. I want to make sure. I know there's a lot of questions with the substance abuse programs, employee assistance programs. That's a reality of our industry. Horatio, you provide all those services. Is that correct?
Correct. In our employee assistance program, we have a return to work process when drivers are either DOT disqualified and then trying to get reinstated. We work closely to get drivers reinstated. Of course, thank you, Steve, on the plug around Drive Well sessions. And that's really looking at the driver as a complete person, and goes back to psychoeducation in reference to not only just telling them, but the videos provide illustrations of what anxiety looks like and illustrations on how to deal with it. You mentioned personal development. A lot of times, looking at how do you take this person just from being a driver to they're interested in being a part of the safety team, or they're interested in being a part of the dispatch team. So having some career paths for drivers, but overall, we have 7 videos out there to support that. And yeah, most of all on the EAP side, it's really taking those services beyond counseling, because that's what the stigma is at. People think about something whenever they get engaged in EAP, they think, oh, I got to go to counseling. Well, no, you're looking at improving your mental wellness, but we also have work-life services where you could get connected to professionals that can help you either locate different services and resources, and also access to professional coaching and things of that nature. So very elaborate program.
Yeah, I think, the content's fantastic, by the way. So the videos are short, typical of our content. They're between 5 and 8 minutes long. I have to say, I think there's probably a hunger for this kind of information that may be unnoticed. We put this content out in our catalog. We were quite surprised at how quickly a lot of this was assigned out. So I think there's a need out there that we just need to put it out there for the drivers, those that may be unwilling to talk about it personally, but having some information provided to them might get them started to find some solution to some issues that they may be working with. So it's very good content. I would highly encourage everybody to make sure that all their personnel, company-wide for that matter, get a chance to view that content. It's really quite good.
Hey, well, thanks for having me, Mark and Steve. I appreciate it. Thank you all who participated today. Thank you. Thanks for having me. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, Horatio, and thanks for everybody that joined us today. And you'll be receiving an email with the link so you can get the replay and all that. So thanks again, Horatio. And I think I'm going to see you maybe next month at one of our programs here. So thank you, sir, and I'll look forward to meeting you in person.
Awesome. Look forward to participating in your boot camp. You guys are a good
Thanks, Jim. Thanks, Mark. Bye, everybody.
All right. Thank you, Steve. Thank you, Horatio.
All right. Take care, guys.
Yes, sir.
Bye-bye.